Okay. Before I start, I just want to announce on Torah Anytime, for those who are watching Torah Anytime, my email has changed because those who email me periodically, so instead of Dovid B. Kaplan, Dovid B, which is my old email, Dovid B. Kaplan, it's been changed. I'm having trouble getting it. I may be able to re-access it, but in the meantime, I've opened up a new account, which is Dovid T. Kaplan. T as in terrible, T as in treacle tart, T as in terrific. I don't want to brag, but what do you call it? So my email is davidtkaplan@gmail.com for anybody who does email me. I apologize for the inconvenience. I messed up my computer and I forgot my password. So this is where I'm holding, but hopefully I will be able to re-access it. In any event, we are on Parshas Lecha. And Avram Avinu on Pasuk Yud, page 56. He gets to the land of Canaan. And we said yesterday there's a famine in the land, which is what we say, Maisa Avos Siman Labanim. Everything that happened to the forefathers is a prelude to what's going to be happening to the children. Avram gets to Eretz Yisrael and things are tough. And that's what he said yesterday, Eretz Yisrael is Niktas B'Yisurim. Eretz Yisrael is one of the things that's only acquired through difficulty. And then we get into a very interesting episode here. It says, Vayhi kasher hikriv lovo b'Mitzrayim. Avram Avinu started approaching Egypt. He's on his way down. About 9 lines from the top on page 56. Vayomer el Sarai ishto hineno yadati ki isha yefas maraot. He said, Sarai, his wife, I know you're a beautiful woman. I now know you're a beautiful woman. So there are two approaches here. One approach is that Avram Avinu, it's just, well, I've known all along you're a beautiful woman, but now we really got to do something about it because we're heading for Egypt and there are a bunch of lowlifes, and this could create a problem for us. The Rashi brings down the Medrash that Avram was so sanua, there was such tznius between Avram, he never looked at her. He never looked at his own wife. He was in such control of himself, they never even looked at his own wife. Now, obviously, people have asked, what about her? I mean, women do like to be looked at by their husbands, right? So obviously, it's with her approval because everything he did was proper. A man who wants to exercise this sort of self-control must only exercise that self-control with his wife's approval because you have obviously obligations to your wife. This applies in all areas. If a man decides he wants to leave the house so that he can learn Torah, he also has to take his wife into consideration. He can't just abandon her. You have to take her into consideration. It has to be what she wants as well. Avram Avinu, be that as it may, Sarah is considered very beautiful. The Gemara says she's one of the most 4 beautiful women in the history of the world. And he's going down to Egypt where there are a bunch of lowlifes. And now he's got a very serious concern. By the way, there's an interesting halachic question that's asked, just by the way. If Avram Avinu kept the entire Torah, and we have that's the Midrashim say he kept the entire Torah. He generated Torah out of his own intuition. He understood the best way to live is with tefillin, and the best way to live is by not eating chazer, and the best way to live is to have a mezuzah, and the best way to live is to not eat blood. He understood that and intuited it, and he lived that way. So they ask a Gemara question. Here comes the thumbs. Here come the thumb, da 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 da. Here come the thumb. So there's an interesting Gemara question here. If Avram Avinu kept the entire Torah, and the Gemara in Kedushin says, a man cannot marry a woman without seeing her first. You know that? You can't betroth the woman without seeing her first. Why? Says the Gemara, because maybe she'll end up repulsive. And if she's repulsive and you marry her, you'll end up hating her. Then you're transgressing. You're transgressing the provision. You're not allowed to hate your fellow man. You're not supposed to love her. So a wife doesn't have to see a man. By the way, you don't have to see a man because it works differently for women. As long as you're nice, she doesn't have to see It's good if she does in advance. Not a great idea to get married by correspondence, right? But it's not absolutely imperative. A man it works differently. So the Gemara, the commentaries ask, if Avram Avinu kept the entire Torah, yet the Medrash says he never looked at his wife, so how did he do Kiddushin? He has an obligation to see her.
Never saw his wife.
That's what we said for those who were here on time. We had mentioned, Rashi mentions that he never looked at her. He brings the Medrash, he never looked at her. So how could it possibly be that if he kept the entire Torah, which the Medrash said, so how did he marry his wife? And he did a chuppah and Kiddushin for sure. So how did he marry her? That's what they ask. Good question, right? Interesting question. What's the answer? There's several approaches. One approach is, well, if you marry a woman, you have to see her, except if you intend to never look at her. If you intend to never look at her, it's not an issue. How does a blind man get married? He also never sees his wife. And can you imagine the blind guy who one day they find a cure for his blindness? And then he takes a look and he says, "Oh no, make me blind again." A lot of possibilities here. So the what do you call that? That's one approach. Well, there's another answer that he never looked at her when the Medrash says he never looked at her. He never looked at her after the Kiddushin. Of course, he looked at her at the Kiddushin. He looked at her because he kept the entire Torah. Then he never looked at her again. They're on their way down to Egypt. And the Medrash says they were crossing a bridge or something, and he saw her reflection in the water. He goes, "Whoa, you're still beautiful. I mean, we're married 80 years, and you're 70 years, you're still beautiful. I didn't expect you to look like you did back then. Women change. I didn't expect you to look like you looked then. And you're still beautiful, right? Now I realize I got a problem." So that's the interesting question that they ask in the Gemara. Be that as it may. Yes, Itamar.
Why didn't he want to look at his wife?
To exercise tznius and self-control. There's a concept of not taking pleasure in this world just for the sake of taking pleasure, and there is at a certain level, most of us are not on that level, there's an idea of minimizing all pleasures in this world. Do you know that there's something called the tainis harayvod, where a person, when you eat, you don't finish everything on your plate. You leave something over. Because right at the height of your desire to continue eating, right there you stop. It doesn't work, by the way, if it's your third plate full. Right? We're talking about the first plate, right? And we're not talking about where you got one of these super plates. We're talking about take a small plate, take one portion, and even that one portion, right? You leave something over as an exercise of self-control. They say that the Vilna Gaon, he ate bread and basically ate bread and water. He would dip his bread in the water to soften it and put it in his mouth and basically try to swallow it without chewing it as much as possible in order to minimize his pleasures of this world. I do the same thing with lemon meringue pie, right? Especially if it's got a lot of cream on it. We're not holding by that. We're not holding by that. We're holding by, by at our level. I know I can speak for at my level. I have to have my pie and I have to have a second piece. I don't have to go to war with the pie, right? That's why my level of self-control is I'm not in a take no prisoners mode, right? Have your pie, enjoy your second piece, but realize there are other people at the table. That's where we're holding. So Avraham Avinu at that level is an exercise in self-control. That's the idea. Now let's go back to the practical end of the story. Let's just look at the story here because it's very, very difficult to understand. So Avraham Avinu says to his wife the following. There are several problems here. The Egyptians will see you. They'll assume you're my wife. They'll kill me and they'll keep you alive because they don't want to commit adultery. Chas v'sholom. So what's the best way to avoid adultery? Kill the husband. Right, that works. Now she's a widow. Right? So everybody asks, adultery they didn't mind. Adultery they were nervous about. But murder they had no problem with. Right? Murder they had no problem. It reminds me of there was a guy with the gangsters from the 20s. You ever read a book? There's a book called But He Was Good to His Mother.
Oh, that just came up in class.
Yeah, that's a great book. And by the way, I thought that these Jewish gangsters were a bunch of, just white-collar crime manipulating numbers. I mean, these guys were some of these were hitmen.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a Jewish hitman for the mafia. His name was, there was a Jewish gangster named Longy Zwilman. And Longy Zwilman was a Kohen. right? So he had no problem bumping people off, but he wouldn't go to the funerals because the coin's not allowed to be near the dead body, right? In many cases, he was the one responsible for the dead body, right? But he wouldn't, there's a limit. There's another guy, how do you like that? And by the way, he's right. I don't mean he's right about bumping people off. It means that just because you did one avera doesn't mean you should do more averas. Avoid as much as you can. Practically, what can I do? It's my Parshas is to be a hitman. What can I do? It's a practical. But I don't have to go to the funeral. I'm a Kohen. He's got that in his wrist. The possibilities are limitless over here. I duchen every morning. I should have thought of this. Crunch. Nobody's looking. They got their towels over their head. They can't see what I'm doing anyway. Nobody will ever know. I could use a silencer. Yeah, right. Yeah. So there was another guy. There's another guy. I told you what the book said. I read the book. It had a very important, because it was a possible career choice for me. And there's another guy named Red Levine, who was a Shomer Shabbos hitman with the mafia in the 1920s. His name was Red Levine. He would not do hits on Shabbos, but in case he had to. If it was a pikuach nefesh, that means somebody needed dying. In case he had to, he insisted on wearing a hat on Shabbos. If he had to do a hit on Shabbos, he wore a hat. Lichvod Shabbos Kodesh. It's a strange world we live in, boys. Can you imagine? So what was interesting though was the Jews in the 1920s, there was no second generation. There was no second generation of Jewish mobsters because it was practical. And they needed a parnasa, so they did it. But all their kids went to college, became professionals. The Italians who they worked with, that was a choice job. There was a family job. It was a family business. The Italians had a continuity. The Jews, there was no continuity. Okay, so the Egyptians had this strange priority where they were concerned about a married woman. We'll see a deeper explanation in a second. And they weren't concerned about murdering the guy. Get the guy out of the way. And there's practical reasons. If the husband's around, he can make trouble, knock him off, and then he can take the one. But they didn't want to commit adultery. So Avram says to Sarah, "They may kill me and they may keep you alive." The Malbim, one of the classic commentaries, the Malbim says that there was a law in the ancient world. A woman who was exceptionally beautiful was considered to be a goddess, and a goddess is only fitting for the pharaoh, Paro, who himself was playing up to be some sort of deity, like the emperor in Japan, right? The emperor of Japan was a deity. They saw him as a deity. A woman who is a goddess, who is beautiful as a goddess, is only fit for the king. A commoner who's married to her, he's rebelling against the king. He deserves the death penalty. Wow. So the Malbim says it wasn't just murder. It was they would sentence him to death for imposing on the king's property. Be that as it may, Avram's got a concern. He says, they'll kill me and they'll keep you alive. And therefore, do the following. Imri na achosiat, please say you're my sister. L'man yitav li ba'avorech, that they should benefit me on your account. How does the Art Scroll translate it? They will go, that it may go well with me. It's not what yitavli means, that they'll give me money. They'll pay. V'chaysa nafshi b'galech, and then I'll stay alive because of you. And the whole thing is very bizarre over here. First of all, what is Avram Avinu saying to her? He's saying, well, tell him you're my sister. Why? Because if you're my sister, in the old days, how did it work? Especially in Muslim countries, even to this day, how does it work? You got a sister or you got a daughter, right? This guy's offering you 2 camels, 2 camels, a bit of gold, and some black coffee, right? And you make the deal in the tent, and there you go, Mazel Tov, right? Mazel Tov, you traded your daughter or your sister for, you're the brother. That's how they work. How did it work? You bartered her away. Yeah, make it worth my while. All right. So Avram says to her, say you're my sister. Say my wife, they're going to kill me. Say you're my sister. And if you're my sister, well, I'll gain something out of this, right? And I'll stay alive. So the obvious question is, honestly, if imagine you're the wife, and your husband says, hey, do me a favor. Just say you're my sister. Because, and number one, I'll make some cash over here. And number two, I'll stay alive. At the moment that you start talking about money, she's like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, if I was the wife, the guy say, who is this guy? Is he my husband? Boy, is he my husband. Take him away. So what's going on? What's going on here? What would Avram Avinu thinking about money at a time like this? That's what you're thinking about? The answer is that, of course not. The answer, of course not. Avram Avinu is saying, listen, we're in a catch-22 over here. If you're my wife, they're going to kill me, right? They're going to kill me. That's going to be worse for you. Because they're going to stay alive. They're going to take you over to the palace, and you go, who knows what they're going to do with you. You just go into the king's harem, and you belong to him. And you're there forever. It's for your benefit. Leman yitav li, they'll benefit me on your account. In other words, they'll pay me. I'll stay alive as your brother. And then at least maybe I'll bribe somebody with the money they give me. Maybe I'll daven more. Maybe I'll appeal. Something could happen. The other way is worse for you. It's not that I need the money for your benefit. I don't want the money for myself. Avram Avinu wanted the money for that. I need the money because if I have the money, then we got the chance. Without the money, then we're really in trouble over here. Without me alive, we're really in trouble. Then you're there forever. This is the only chance that we have. They'll give me money, and then we'll see. A lot of things could happen with the money. Vayehi kevo Avram Mitzrayim. So Avram comes down to Egypt. Vayiru Mitzrim esa isha ki yafa ma'od. The Egyptians see her that she's very beautiful. Now, the Rashi brings down that when you notice it says in the singular, 5 lines from the bottom, Vayehi kevo Avram Mitzrayim. When Avram arrived in Egypt. That's singular. It doesn't say kivo when they arrived. It says when he arrived. So Rashi said, where was Sarah? So Rashi says he put her in a box to try to smuggle her into the country. Maybe they won't notice. And then they opened the box. It's like in Israel when you get into the airport. You got the nothing to declare. Right? There are 2 lines there. There's the green line and there's nothing to declare. Right? You got all the Jews. They got heaped up. A wagon heaped up bigger than a truck is heaped up with nothing to declare. You try to walk. Come here, buddy. Let's see what you got over there. They start opening it up, and Avram's going through the green light, through the green sign. He's going nothing to declare. Hey, let's open it up. Oh, I do declare. And then, hey guys, got to look at that. Yeah, and they see her, and all of a sudden everybody gets all fevered up over here. Who are we talking about? Now look at this is one of the indications of what lowlifes the Egyptians were. Then the high officials of Paro come to check this out. What are your politicians involved in? Normally politicians, hey, defend the country, lower taxes, get the garbage cleaned up. What are they doing? They're checking out some lady. That's what they're doing. That's what they show. First, the border guards find her. Then the next thing you know, the high officials are, what do you need the high officials for? What's going on? It's just a woman. What's going on here? Oh, what a bunch of lowlifes. Paro. They praise her to Paro. She's taken to the house of Paro. So one of the Forshim here says, where does the trouble start? And this goes back to Parshas Noach as well. Where did all the trouble start? And you ask me, Itamar, why didn't Avram Avinu look at her? Look what happens when you do look. Vayiru Osa. It starts with looking, right? They come to me, Vayiru Amitzrim Esa Isha. They see the woman, you're looking. What are you looking? What are you gazing? What are you looking? Okay, the plain meaning is they found her, but you're looking. It's always the eyes that get people in trouble. You look, you get in trouble. That's the idea. And therefore, what do you call it? They take her and they praise her to Paro. Ula Avram Hetiv Bavura, made Avram wealthy. They paid good money, after all. It's my sister. Vahilo tzon uvakar, they gave him cattle. Vachamorim va'avodim, donkeys and slaves. Ushvachos v'asonos, they gave all sorts of merchandise with slaves. And she's taken into Paro. Now, I want to put something in a proper perspective here. This is considered a test. What's the test? You don't remember he said yesterday? What's the test? A guy goes with his wife, go to Washington, D.C. And, everybody goes, what, you want to see the White House? So the guy's standing there outside the White House gate. And all of a sudden the Secret Service guys come out and say, excuse me, sir, we're taking your wife into the White House. Oh, really? Yeah. Bill Clinton's there, alone. Hillary's in China, right? And he takes his wife into Bill Clinton in the White House, right? The husband's standing there outside the gates, right? Not a great situation. It's a test. What's the test?
Faith.
What's the test?
Test is faith.
How do you accept it? How do you accept it? How do you accept what's going on? Oh man, that's what I came to Canaan for, and that's why there's a famine, and that's why I'm down here, just so my wife could get taken by Bill Clinton? And by the way, Paro was worse. Yeah, Paro was worse than Bill Clinton, if such a thing is possible. Paro was worse, right? He's like, you're going into Paro, you're taking a woman into Paro, and the husband's left outside. Where's the test? The test says, Gamzu Latova, Gamzu, or how do you accept this? And Paro is taken in, and then what happens? Vayinaga Hashem es Paro negoim gedolim. Paro gets big plagues. Vez beso. Al dvar Sarai eshes Avram, because of the matter of Sarai. Paro approaches Sarai and smack. You ever heard the expression, three's a crowd? There was a third one in the room with them, was the Malach. There was an angel in the room. And Paro, what Sarai comes in, she says, by the way, don't touch me, I'm a married woman. Oh, yeah? And Paro doesn't accept. And Paro starts advancing. And Sarah says, hit him, bam. And the Malach smacks him. Boom. Oh, what was that? Boom. What was that? And eventually he gets the message and he releases her. And that's why it says, Al Dvar Sarai, by her word. By the word of Sarai, when she said hit, he hit. The Malach hits. Vayikra Paro la'Avram. This is classic. Vayikra Paro la'Avram vayomer mazos asitha. What did you do to me? What did you do to me? You Avram, what did you do to me? Lama lo higarata li ki ishtachai. Why did you tell me she's your wife? Yeah. I got a real good reason why I didn't say that. And Paro says to Avram, hey, why didn't you tell me she's your wife? And Avram is looking at him like this. Yeah. And if I would have said she's my wife, then what would have been? And they would have killed me. He doesn't say any of that, he's only thinking it. Lama marta chosihi, v'akachosa li ishto. Why'd you say it's my sister? Ve'ata hine ishtacha kach v'lech. Take your wife and go. You notice he doesn't even give Avram even a chance to answer. This is classic blame the victim. Guy shows up with a woman, two older people. What do you think she is? The guy once said to me, and we'll see in a couple of Parshas, Yitzchak and Rivka, they go to the Plishtim, and they have Yaakov and Esav, two children with them. And he says, it's my sister. So one of the guys in Shir said to me, Rabbi, come on, what's going on here? I mean, it's a man and a woman and two children. What do you think? We're not talking about a family from Tennessee over here. What do you think this is? That's exactly what he said. What do you think? A guy with his sister? I mean, what do you think is going on here? That means there are certain times in life, and this is an approach to life. Is it kosher until proven otherwise? Or is it treif until proven otherwise? Treif. Well, it's an attitude. Some people say, well, it's got kosher. It's kosher. It's probably kosher. No, show me it's not. Prove it's not. You see a hamburger on the table, a fresh burger on the table. It is a kosher burger. It's not a kosher. Well, I'll assume it's kosher until proven otherwise. Right? That's one attitude. It's kosher. Like in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. Halacha says it's guilty until you're proven innocent. It's guilty until you're proven innocent. Don't take liberties. Hey, how do you know you can eat that? How do you know you can take that? Something's left on the table. I guess I could borrow it. I guess the guy won't mind. You know for a fact he won't mind? So if you know for a fact, it's one thing. But what if he does mind? Then you're stealing. So the attitude, the Torah attitude is, wait, Paro, you didn't think to investigate a little bit? Maybe you should investigate. Oh, wow, it's somebody's sister. He didn't bother asking, well, who said? And check into it. Just take and grab. Well, no, then you end up in trouble. That's the Torah attitude. The attitude that, well, nobody said it's wrong. I told you, a guy goes to, this rabbi to shul, he drives past the McDonald's. And he looks over, and he says, hey, there's Bernstein sitting in a McDonald's chowing down on a cheeseburger. So the rabbi walks over to the window, and he looks at him. There's Bernstein, and he looks up to the rabbi, sees the rabbi, and he waves and continues eating. And the rabbi is just fuming. And he goes, finally he waits, finally the guy finishes, he comes out. I was to say, Bernstein, I'm here, you're sitting at a McDonald's. Didn't you see me watching you? You see me standing there looking at you? He says, yeah. He says, so why'd you continue eating? He says, well, I saw you. I figured it's under rabbinic supervision, so I could continue eating. So the guy goes into McDonald's and says, well, I saw a big M. I thought it stood for Mahadran. Why don't you ask? Why don't you ask? Sometimes in life we don't want to ask because we're worried about the answer. Worried about the answer. So he chases Avraham Avinu out. Okay. So now look what happens, because this is a very important lesson now. It says like this. By the way, I told you a story. This guy is on a plane. There's a Yeshivat Ohr is on an airplane. And it's like one of these domestic flights. So they come around, and they have a snack, on the domestic flight. They come around, they put down a salami sandwich in front of him. And the guy's starving. He's absolutely starving. And everybody gets salami sandwiches. He's got a special kosher salami sandwich. They put the salami sandwich down in front of him. This Bachar is starving. He's been traveling for a while. Starving. He gets up and he goes to wash. And he gets back to his seat. And he realizes, whoa, I think I just messed up. Because there's a halacha, there's something called basar shenisale mina ayin. Kosher meat that has not been supervised, I'm not going into all the details, but if it's not been under the supervision of a Jew, if it's been out of somebody's supervision, you can't eat it. You can't eat it. So the guy is what he called. He gets back to his seat. He doesn't know what to do. He said, yeah, but, Chazal said you can't eat it because you're worried that somebody might have tampered with it. Nobody tampered with my sandwich. I don't know. He said, you know what? Chazal made it's a rabbanan, derabbanan. I'm not going to violate the derabbanan. So he breaks off a little piece of the bread to make him a hamotzi, and that's it, and he sits there. There's a non-Jew sitting next to him, an older guy, and he says to him, hey kid, aren't you hungry? He goes, yeah. He says, why aren't you eating? He says, no, I'm not that hungry. He says, come on, I saw you. You were ravished. Why aren't you eating? He figures the truth is the best. He says, well, we have a law that once my food is out of my sight, I'm not allowed to eat it. He says, why is that? Was it getting uncomfortable? He says, well, the rabbi said so. He says, when did these rabbis live? He says, a couple thousand years ago. He says, why? He says, well, they're worried that somebody might have tampered with my food and put non-kosher food in there. So he says to him, you got some pretty smart rabbis. I've always wondered what kosher salami tasted like. Whoa. And I waited for you to get up. And when I saw you get up, I took a piece of mine and switched it with a piece of yours. Oh, you got some pretty smart rabbis. How do you like that? How do you like that? How do you like that? Right? That's it. Chazal made a takana. Chazal wasn't. So the first guy says, come on. Yeah, it's probably okay. Yeah, it probably is. It probably is. Once in a while, there's a chance that it's not, and therefore you're eating cyanide. Because when the Rabbanan said you can't eat it, it turns into cyanide. You're eating cyanide. You had some cyanide. That's all. Even if he didn't switch to salami, you're eating cyanide. Because the Rabbanan said you're not allowed to eat that sandwich. Okay, there are all sorts of halachas over here. I once had this situation. I had to send a platter of food to my parents who were living on the other side of Yerushalayim. We sent them some food for Shabbos, and or they sent us, I don't remember which, maybe they sent us the food, that's more likely. And so my mother put it in a cab, and they brought it to us, and I realized that all the food was out of Orthodox supervision. So we talked about postgate. He was a Jewish cab driver who was traditional, so it was okay. But it's not so simple. It's a shaila. It's a shaila because maybe somebody's and the Rabbanan made a decree. Once they made a decree, there are no exceptions. There's no for me it's okay because there are no exceptions. It's a Rabbanan. Now I want to pay attention here. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Is that why when we order from delivery services, it's always taped?
Gotta be double. What do you call it? And even then, I don't know exactly what the halacha is.
What if it's a cheese pizza and it's not meat?
No, it's only on meat. It's only on meat. Yeah, cheese.
Why is the strictness on meat?
Because meat was always more vulnerable. It's basar shenisale mina ayin. The meat was always more vulnerable. They made more they made more takanas with meat. All right, I want to go on because there's a very important point. Yeah, go on, Mir.
Is there any relationship with these plagues that Hashem brings to Paro? And how we could perhaps bring this to...
The plagues in Egypt.
The
Yeah,
plagues in
everything that happened here is related. The Jewish people going to go down to Egypt. Things look hopeless, and eventually Paro himself escorts them out. Right? Avram Avinu goes down there. He's a vulnerable vagrant who's wandering around. His wife is. The situation's essentially hopeless. Basically hopeless. There's no hope for Avram. In that situation, the wife's taken into the White House. That situation is hopeless. It's absolutely hopeless. And at the end of the day, it's the very Paro who escorts him out. Wealthy. Just like the Jews when they left Egypt. This is all Maisa. The whole thing, 100% right, Mayor. The whole thing is Maisa of Osim Labanim. Maisa of what happened to the forefathers. This is a premonition, a prelude to what's going to be happening to the children. All along, all the way, every step of the way. Okay, now watch this. Avram comes up from Egypt, and Lot is with him. And Avram kaved me'od ba'mikta ba'kesef uvazav. Avram Avinu is very heavy in cattle, in silver, and in gold. Now you notice earlier it didn't say we had silver and gold. So it says that he sold some of the property that Paro had given him. He sold some of that property for silver and gold. He's very rich. Vayelech lemasa'av b'negev ve'ad Beisel. Ad hamakom asher haya sham olo batchila be'Beisel ve'na oi. Okay, so Avram goes traveling. And along the way, he's stopping and he continues his life's work, which is preaching about the monotheism, telling people there's a God in the world. You're talking about a man going up against the entire world. You're talking about a man who is trying to convince the world you're wrong. There's a God, it's not a pagan world worshiping idols. That was his life mission. They were going to keep coming back to that. That was his life mission, to educate the world. The gam Lot haholech es Avram hayatzonu v'okar v'olim. Lot also had lots of property. Paro made Lot wealthy also. Now listen to what happens when you have a lot of money. When Avram Avinu originally left Haran and he came to the land of Lot went with him. Remember we mentioned that's a very big praise. That's a credit to Lot. Why is it a credit to Lot? That you're willing to go, you realize this is a man who could educate me. This is a man I could emulate. I know what kind of tzaddik Avram Avinu is. And Lot says, I need to stick with him. This is extremely important. And then something happens that changes everything. He becomes rich. Oh, when you become rich, kind of, what do you call it? I think, by the way, the Powerball is now at $1,200,000,000.
Whoa.
Yeah. $1,200,000,000. Nobody's won. It's at $1,200,000,000 right now. Yeah. I know. I could cry. Yeah. I want to cry also. Yeah. Except that I'm in a good mood because of the election, so I won't cry. But the Powerball's over. Yeah, it's over $1 billion again. So it says that Lot got rich. V'lo nasa osa ma'aretz l'sheves yachdav ki haya rushchu shamra v'lo yochlu l'sheves yachdav. They had a lot of property they couldn't do all together. So what happens? Lot decides he's going to separate from Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu doesn't like Lot's attitude because Lot's shepherds are grazing on other people's property. Avram is meticulously honest, and Lot's shepherds are taking liberties. They're stealing. They're grazing all over the place. At that point, Avram Avinu says to Lot, Vayomer Avram el Lot, Al noti meriva beini uveinecho veinroi veirecho. Let there not be a fight. 3 lines from the bottom. Ki anoshim achim anachnu. We are brothers. We're relatives. Let's not fight. What's the best thing for relatives to avoid fighting? Go in opposite directions. That's the best thing. That's how relatives get along best. He says, Hello, kol haaretz lefanecha, hi pared nam elai. Let's say you separate from me. Separate yourself from me. Im hasmol ve'emin. If you go left, I'll go right. V'mayaminu asmeila. If you're Lot at this point, what would you do? If you were Lot and Avram Avinu says this to you, what would you do at that point?
Try to make peace.
That's right. 100%. I throw myself on my hands and knees and I say, sorry, uncle, I messed up. I really shouldn't be doing this. Give me another chance. What's happening to Lot? What's happening to Lot is Lot feels, I don't need Avram anymore. It's a very important lesson, gentlemen. He says, I don't need Avram Avinu anymore. I've learned from him. I've studied from Avram Avinu. And once I've studied from Avraham Avinu, I want to go out and do kiruv on my own now. And where does he choose to go? There's no accident. Where does he want to go? He wants to go to, Ben Yehuda to do what? To be makar of everybody. Yeah. When you go to Ben Yehuda to be makar of everybody, we know what happens, right? You get makar of yourself, right? Makriv, makar means like bringing a sacrifice. Right? Lot says, Vayisa Lot Esainavine, Vayaris Kokikar Yardi Kikula Mashke. Wow, it's great grazing land. Lifnei Shaches Hashem Estom Vesamora, Kigan Hashem Beretzor Beretzor. Vayivchar lo Lot es Kokikar Yardi Vaisal Mikedem, Vayipardu Ish Meachiv. Lot takes leave of Avram Avinu. Not a word about, hey, maybe give me another chance, maybe. So at a deeper level, Lot's a very high-level person at this point. Lot's a spiritual giant at this point. He's got all the good intentions. You know what they say about the highway to Gehenna being paved? Yeah. Right? The highway to Gehenna is paved with good intentions. Right? I got great intentions. Let's go to Sdom. Let's go kiruv. Let's go do kiruv on what do you call it? At the University of Arizona campus. Right? Yeah, in summer. Right? That's a great place to do kiruv. Yeah, you understand? Some people could do it. But you better be sure you could do it, otherwise you can get pulled down. Look what happens to Lot. You're with Avram Avinu, you're a rich man. Look what ends up happening to Lot. He ends up losing everything, including his children. His wife and his daughters. A couple of daughters he keeps. We'll see. A couple of daughters stay. But he loses everything. Why? Because you made one life choice. Rav Dessler says there are certain points, everybody's making choices all day long. All day long we're making decisions and choices. Even if it's a choice of do you want milchiks for lunch or fleischiks for lunch or what am I going to have? Some spaghetti? We make choices all the time. Should I drive this way, take this route, take that route? There are other decisions that are what's called crossroad decisions. Should I embark on this career or should I embark on this career? Your choice of lunch is not a major life decision. Your choice of career or your choice of where to live or your choice of who to marry, these are often life decisions. Lot made a life decision and he made the wrong one. Sometimes you make the decision and the decision that you make is the right decision. It just didn't work out the way you wanted it to because there's a Ribono Shalom in the world. So you always have to forget you can make the decision, but you're not going to be responsible for the results. The results you can't control. You have to make the right decision. Remember I gave you the example of guys crossing the street? One guy crosses an 8-lane highway. He closes his eyes and he runs across the street recklessly. Cars are slamming on the brakes left, right, and center. And he gets to the other side of the street and he finds a wallet with $30,000 in it. The second guy waits for all the traffic to clear. He looks left, he looks right, crosses the street carefully, and in the middle of the street, a light aircraft crashes into him and kills him. Who did the right thing?
The guy who looked both ways.
The guy looked both ways. As the old saying goes, to avoid that run-down feeling, look both ways before crossing the street. So the guy who looked both ways, he did the right thing. But he's not responsible for it. What's the proof? If you were the third guy, what would you do? Well, let's look at the data. Close your eyes, you end up with alive with $30,000. Open your eyes, you end up crushed by an airplane. So what do? No, I know exactly what you do. You'd look both ways. You'd look up, right? And then you'd cross the street. Why? Because that's the right thing to do, but we're not responsible for the results. And a lot of times in life, people do the wrong things, and they end up, you did the wrong thing, you ended up, you ended up, what do you call it? You played hooky from school, which is the wrong thing. You attended a baseball game, and then you caught, what's his name, Aaron Judge's 60-second home run. So now you're a millionaire, right? Okay, you did the wrong thing, but Kosher Baruch Hu decided that he wants it to work out well for you. We're not responsible for the results, we're responsible to make the right decisions. If you made the right decision, if Lot would have said, hey, Avram Avinu, let's talk this over. What do you think is better for me spiritually? And Avram Avinu says, I think that you should go to Sodom and do kiruv in Sodom. And you see, he becomes a judge. What qualified Lot to be? A judge doesn't mean he was a judge. He's trying to tell you he wants to correct people. You see, he's hospitable in a country that's not hospitable. He had the right motivation. Except what happened? Who told you to do that? You decided to do that, usually because you have an ulterior motivation, which is the money. And Lot parts from Avram Avinu, and that's the biggest mistake that he makes. Now, I just want to show you one thing, because I'm going to leave you with a question. When Avram Avinu, back on page 58, Avram Avinu says to Lot, 3 lines from the bottom. He says, "Vayomer Avram Elot, al neiti beriva beini uvenach ve'nei v'necha, ki achim anoshim achim anachnu." We are brothers, which obviously means what? We're relatives. Take a look at Rashi. Take a look at Rashi. It's on the left column of Rashi, 5 lines from the bottom. Left column, 5 lines. Anoshim achim, we're brothers. Krovim, we're relatives. Umedrash Agoda, the Medrash says, Domim beklaster panim. They looked alike. They looked alike. Lot and Avram, I mean, honestly, between me and you, so what? And therefore we should separate, therefore we should stay together. What's that got to do with what Avram Avinu is telling Lot? What's it got to do with anything? So we're telling you an interesting fact. Oh, by the way, they looked alike too. That we'll have the answer next week in B'rith Hashem. So again, Torah Anytime people, I just want to remind you again, my email has been changed from Dovid B. Kaplan, B as in Botanical Gardens. Dovid B. Kaplan is not really functioning, so if anybody wants to email me, make it Dovid T. Kaplan. T is in theoretical, T is in Tom, T is in Tom, yeah, T is in terrific, yeah, and T, Dovid T. Kaplan at gmail.com. Thank you.